Marine One touched down near a quiet neighborhood in Pittsburgh, its powerful rotors kicking up dust as it settled. No one at the Starlight Children's Home had expected this visit. Inside the modest brick building, children played in the common area, their laughter filling the halls, until the doors opened and Secret Service agents stepped in. Then, a moment of silence. Donald Trump walked in, adjusting his suit as he took in the surroundings. The place was well kept but clearly underfunded. Worn-out books on the shelves, a few old toys scattered around. A woman in her 60s, the orphanage director, stepped forward, pushing up her glasses. "Mr. President," she said, clearly surprised. "We weren't expecting—" Trump raised a hand, offering a small smile. "I like surprises." The children hesitated at first, unsure how to react. Then, a little boy, no older than 8, stepped forward. His clothes were slightly too big, his sneakers worn. "Are you really the president?" he asked, his eyes wide. Trump crouched down slightly. "That's what they tell me." The boy grinned. "I'm Jake." "Nice to meet you, Jake." Trump shook his hand firmly. "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Jake's smile faded slightly, as if the question carried weight. "I want to be a pilot." Trump studied him. "A pilot, huh? That's a big dream." Jake nodded. "But Miss Clara says big dreams are good." Miss Clara, the director, chuckled. "I do say that." Trump straightened, looking around. "Who else here has big dreams?" Slowly, hands went up. A girl with glasses wanted to be a doctor. A teenager in the back wanted to start his own business. One boy wanted to be an astronaut. Trump listened, really listened, nodding as each child spoke. Finally, he turned to Miss Clara. "What do these kids need the most?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Opportunities. People willing to believe in them." Trump was quiet for a moment, looking at Jake again. Then he made a decision. "Jake, how would you like to see the inside of a real plane?" The boy's eyes widened. "Really?" Trump nodded. "I know some people. I think we can make it happen." The room buzzed with excitement, but Trump wasn't done. He turned to his team. "Get me a list of organizations that help kids in orphanages get career training, scholarships, mentorships, all of it. We're going to make some calls." His aides exchanged glances, but they knew he was serious. Within days, the initiative was in motion. Aviation schools were contacted. Programs for aspiring young professionals were expanded. Trump personally arranged for Jake to visit a flight school, sitting in the cockpit of a private jet. But it didn't stop there. News of his visit spread, inspiring others to get involved. Businesses pledged scholarships. Retired professionals volunteered to mentor kids. The Starlight Children's Home became the center of something much bigger, a nationwide effort to ensure orphaned children weren't forgotten. Months later, Trump returned to the orphanage. Jake ran up to him, waving a small notebook. "Look, I started my flight log." Trump ruffled his hair. "That's how it starts, kid." Miss Clara wiped a tear from her eye. "I don't know how to thank you." Trump waved it off. "Just promise me one thing. When Jake gets his pilot's license, I get the first ride." The room erupted in laughter. But deep down, everyone knew this was more than a visit. It was the beginning of something real, something that would change lives forever. Months passed, but Trump hadn't forgotten about Jake, or the other kids at Starlight Children's Home. One afternoon, as he sat in his office at Mar-a-Lago, an aide placed a folder on his desk. "Mr. President, an update on the orphanage programs, and Jake sent you something." Trump raised an eyebrow and flipped the folder open. On top was a hand-drawn picture, a stick-figure version of himself standing next to a plane, with Jake in the cockpit, giving a thumbs up. Scrawled in shaky handwriting were the words, "One day, I'll fly you anywhere you want." Trump chuckled. Kid's got ambition. His expression grew serious as he flipped through the rest of the file. The mentorship programs had taken off, literally. Jake had been accepted into a youth aviation program. Other kids had found paths toward careers in medicine, engineering, and business. But some orphanages still struggled, and funding gaps remained. Trump leaned back in his chair, thinking. Then he grabbed his phone. "Get me a meeting with some of the biggest companies in aviation, tech, and finance. We're going to take this nationwide." A year later, a dream takes flight. It was a bright morning in Florida when Trump arrived at a small private airfield. A crowd had gathered, business leaders, mentors, and most importantly, dozens of kids from orphanages across the country. A sleek jet sat on the tarmac, its door open, stairs lowered. And standing at the bottom of those stairs was Jake, now a year older, dressed in a crisp pilot's uniform, just a trainee's version, but the pride in his eyes made it look like the real thing. Trump walked up to him, smirking. "You sure you're ready for this, Captain?" Jake nodded, trying to stand taller. "I've been practicing." Trump turned to the crowd. This kid had a dream, and today he's taking his first official flight lesson. Because when you give kids a real chance, they prove what they're made of. Applause erupted. Trump shook Jake's hand, then turned to his team. "Make sure every kid here gets their shot. We don't stop at one." As Jake climbed the steps, looking back one last time, Trump called out, "Don't forget, I get the first ride when you're a real pilot." Jake grinned. "You got it, Mr. President." The jet's engines roared to life. As it rolled down the runway and lifted into the sky, Trump watched, arms crossed. Another dream was taking off. And this was just the beginning. The roar of the jet engines faded as Jake's plane disappeared into the sky, but the ripple effect of that moment was just beginning to unfold. The aviation program Trump had helped establish for the kids at Starlight Children's Home had quickly expanded to include more orphanages nationwide. What had started as a simple gesture had evolved into a full-scale initiative, one that saw thousands of kids from disadvantaged backgrounds receiving mentorship, scholarships, and career opportunities in fields ranging from aviation to medicine, business, and beyond. The media picked up on the success of the program, dubbing it the Trump Vision Initiative. Donald Trump, the businessman who once seemed indifferent to the struggles of everyday people, had now become a champion for forgotten youth. His critics raised eyebrows, questioning whether it was all a publicity stunt, but the results spoke for themselves. The numbers were undeniable. Trump sat in his office at Mar-a-Lago one late afternoon, staring out at the sprawling grounds. His phone buzzed. It was a video message from Jake. "Mr. President!" Jake's smiling face appeared on the screen, his background a clear blue sky. "I'm about to take my first solo flight. You said you wanted that first ride, so this is for you." Trump chuckled as he watched the young boy, now a confident pilot in training, speak. Jake's excitement was palpable. The message continued. "Thanks to you, I've got my wings, and I'm not stopping here. One day, I'm going to be the youngest commercial airline pilot in history, and I'll be flying for the people who need it most. Thanks for believing in me, Mr. President. You're changing lives." Trump's eyes softened as he set the phone down. He hadn't expected such a personal message, but it reminded him why he'd done it. The national movement grows months past, and the Trump Vision Initiative blossomed. What had once been a local effort in Pittsburgh had turned into a nationwide network. with Trump at the helm, pushing for more resources, more corporate partnerships, and more success stories like Jake's. It wasn't just about aviation anymore. It was about giving children the tools they needed to break the cycle of poverty and build a brighter future. The program partnered with tech giants like Google and Tesla, which provided coding scholarships and training. Medical institutions offered internships for aspiring doctors. Even some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country volunteered their time, teaching kids how to build businesses from the ground up. And with each success story that came through the program, the momentum grew. Jake's flight school graduation became national news. He was celebrated as a symbol of possibility, a living proof that dreams, no matter how big, were within reach for every child, no matter their circumstances. But Trump wasn't content to rest on his laurels. He knew that there were still challenges ahead. There were still kids who hadn't found their path, kids who didn't have the resources they needed to chase their dreams. He wanted to do more. One day, as he was meeting with his team about the next phase of the initiative, an aide walked in. "Mr. President, there's someone here to see you. They say it's urgent." Trump raised an eyebrow. "Send them in." The door opened and a woman entered, holding a thick folder in her hands. She was a tall, composed woman in her mid-30s, her demeanor confident, yet urgent. "Mr. President," she began, setting the folder on the desk. "I'm Carol Jenkins. I run an organization called the Future Builders. We focus on high-risk youth, kids who are often overlooked, the ones who fall through the cracks." Trump nodded, gesturing for her to sit. "I'm listening." Carol leaned forward. "We've heard about your initiative, and we want to take it a step further. We've been tracking the success stories, and we've realized that while there are many kids thriving in your program, there's a significant gap for those who need post-secondary education. After high school, they're often left to figure things out on their own. There's no clear path forward for many of them." Trump frowned, considering her words. "What do you suggest?" Carol opened the folder, revealing a comprehensive plan. "We want to create a program that not only helps kids find their passion, but also supports them as they pursue it beyond high school. Full scholarships, job placements, mentorship from industry leaders. The whole package." Trump looked over the plan, his mind already turning. This was the missing piece. "Let's do it," he said, his voice resolute. The Future Builders Initiative. The announcement came just a few weeks later. The Future Builders Initiative would provide a bridge between childhood dreams and adult realities, ensuring that every child who had participated in the Trump Vision Initiative would have access to higher education and career opportunities. Jake, now an official flight school graduate, was the first to sign up. But soon, kids from all over the country began applying. Children who had once believed their futures were uncertain, unsure of how to break the cycle of poverty, now had a way forward. The first graduating class of the Future Builders program was a celebration like no other. Hundreds of children, once forgotten, now walked across the stage to receive their diplomas, their futures glowing bright. Jake, wearing a pilot's uniform, stood at the front, receiving a standing ovation. Trump, standing at the back of the auditorium, watched the kids he had helped, the kids who had become symbols of what could be achieved with a little belief and a lot of hard work. A soft voice spoke behind him. "Mr. President, you've really changed things." Trump turned, nodding with a faint smile. "We all did. And we're not done yet." As the crowd cheered, Jake caught Trump's eye from across the room. The young pilot gave him a thumbs up. Trump winked back, knowing that this was just the beginning of something even greater. The future was no longer uncertain for these kids. With the right support, they had all the tools they needed to build their own destiny. The auditorium erupted in applause as Jake, now a confident young pilot, walked across the stage to receive his diploma. He smiled and looked at Trump in the crowd. "This is for you, Mr. President," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Trump stood, clapping proudly. "You did this, Jake," he whispered to himself, feeling a swell of pride. Trump turned to the audience. "This is what happens when we believe in our children. When we give them opportunities, they soar higher than we ever imagined." Jake stepped forward. "Thank you for giving us a chance. We won't stop here. We'll make you proud." The room stood in applause, a moment of shared pride and hope. Trump knew this was just the beginning. What's your dream? What's holding you back? Share your story below. Your words might inspire the next generation.